Hello and welcome to Flippin' Through the Internet's #1 Mad Magazine news review and interview channel. And today we have quite a show for you. Thank you so much. We have 7 viewers already. I saw lots of likes before this video even got started. So thank you guys for showing up for me and also showing up for Mort Todd. Before I get started, I got to thank my patrons. If you want to support this channel, what I do here, easiest way, #1 way, is just hit like and hit subscribe and leave a comment. That's the best and easiest way to help me. But if you want to help me monetarily, why would you? I can offer very little, but stickers. Go to patreon.com/flippinthrough, just like these people did. Mark Wolf, Bobby Weigel, Cam Hayden, Ed Meisinger, Doug Guilford, Rob Wilson, Rod Mead Sperry, Andrew Goldfarb, Casey Ori, and Kyle Bridget. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I hope I can keep on earning it. And also, hey, shout out to the people in the chat. Casey Ori, what's up? Very stoked for this, and me too. I was so stoked I couldn't help but comment. Mort Todd is there and here. U.S. Army Combat Medic, how's it going, Mark? Sketchy Works is here. Aaron Grimm, what's up, man? How do you do? Senor Feijão is here. Hello, hello. And that's it, guys. That's all I'm going to say to you for a while because I got more important people to talk to. All right. So please welcome to the stream, Mort Todd.
Hello, everybody. Well, first, I want to thank you very much for having me on your esteemed show, even though I never officially worked with MAD. I worked with a lot of people that worked at MAD and then came over to Cracked. And secondly, I want to apologize to everyone watching because of, not just because of my career, but also because I have a bad tooth today. And so I'm a little swollen and I might sound funny, but I won't be funny, but I'll sound funny.
Well, yeah. And you know, I've had to quickly expand from just MAD because you know, like I've met a lot of people through this channel. Like I'm talking about like people who watch and comment on my videos, and like very quickly they were like, yeah, MAD's great, but what about Sick? What about Crazy? What about Cracked? What about National Lampoon? And so I've expanded out that as well, and I'm glad I did because it's I'm getting exposed to a lot of new stuff that I've never seen before. But Cracked is not one of those new things. I grew up also reading Cracked magazine, though not as avidly as I did MAD magazine.
Yeah, I don't trust anyone that tells me like, oh yeah, I always like Cracked better than MAD, and I was like, come on. There might be some, but you know, I was the same way growing up. Yeah, it was like MAD, and then like, oh, look at this, it's some Cracked, and you know, of course, Cracked would have some unique features that MAD didn't have, like especially like Bill Ward. I mean, when you're a little kid seeing the Bill Ward sexy chicks, you're just like, why do I like that drawing so much?
It's like I think something is awoken in me.
Yeah, exactly.
So if for those people who are tuning in, maybe they don't know who you are. You were you were the editor-in-chief of Cracked magazine.
Yeah, as a youngster. I was hired when I was 22 and initially just as an assistant editor, but then we found out the editor who had a long history in humor magazines, Paul Lakin, was pulling all kinds of shenanigans and everything. So, you know, while they were looking for a new editor, I would just put the book out by myself. And after a few months, they realized, like, you know what? This kid can do it. Why don't we just use him? And so that's what happened. And yeah, and I also wrote and drew every now and then for the magazine. And then, you know, launched a lot of titles like Cracked Monster Party, which has a good fan following. And because I always love monsters, and Cracked had done so many monster stories in the past that it's pretty easy to put together monster reprints, and we did some new material too. And then I also launched a legitimate horror magazine called Monsters Attack.
So when you got picked up, when you were saying like you were the young guy who took over the magazine, it reminded me of, I can't think of his name right now, but who is the guy who took over Marvel, and he like whipped them into shape?
Jim Shooter.
Jim Shooter, yeah, he was like that. No, but yeah, he was like that young guy who came in and like took the reins and like did really awesome things.
Yeah.
So you're like the Jim Shooter of humor magazines.
I'm not as tall.
Yeah, probably not as reviled by some people. Also,
I wouldn't go that far.
So what, like, you were, before you stepped into that editor-in-chief role, you were currently like writing and illustrating for them?
No.
Okay.
It just totally came in cold. Before then, I was I was like freelancing for like like DC Comics. Like I wrote Superman and a few other things, and I had done like a camp newspaper in my teens. I was editor and just had the same sort of humor in it and stuff like that. So I was ready for it. Yeah. And me and some friends like Dan Clowes and Rick Alter got self-published this crazy EC-inspired horror humor comics called Psycho Comics. Mm-hmm. Before then too, and everything. So I've done a bit of work in comic. Well, not a lot for being in my early 20s and stuff. But so when I got my claws into it, I was ready. Because I was just such a comic fan growing up. I devoured everything. So yeah, I knew Sick, Crazy, everything. Yeah. Lampoon. I got permission from my mom to read Lampoon when I was 11, because it was dirty. So you know, Mom, is it all right if I get this? And she was like, sure.
I just spoke with Kit Lively, and
great guy.
He was.
I don't know him personally, but
yeah, and he was talking about like when he was a kid, not getting permission, but just like handing his mother stacks of books. And at the library, and her just saying, "Oh, you're reading, okay." I'm not going to check what demented filth you're reading, but it paid off. It paid dividends for him, right?
That's why he's a multimillionaire like me.
Yeah. I'm a big comic fan as well, specifically DC Comics. So, like, did you want to get into like that sort of like classic American comics thing, sure, or was the idea of working at a humor magazine?
No, that was accidental.
Oh, okay.
It really was, but I was prepared, because I'd read so much of it. No, like I said, I'm from Maine originally and moved to New York because back then, early 80s, there's no way you could have gotten into publishing without being in New York and stuff. Mm-hmm. So, just on out of the blue, I would send out, plot ideas to companies, and I sent a bunch of Superman ones to DC, and they called me in. So it was very pleasant, and had like, I don't know if E. Nelson Bridwell, heard his name, but
no, I don't know that name.
Yeah, well, he was Julie Schwartz's assistant editor.
I know that name.
Yeah. So he would go through all the scripts and was like, "Oh, this is a good one." And so went in and met with them both, and Nelson was probably one of the very first comic fans to go pro. Okay. So he just knew everything, and we would just match for match baloney trivia, but he obviously had the upper hand and could explain the difference pronunciations of Mxyzptlk and the Golden Age and the Silver Age and spelling and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Mxyzptlk, that was one where it was like the first time I heard it, and I was like, no way, that's how it's said. It's like
Mxyzptlk, and the Golden Age was Mxyzptlk.
Yeah. See, I'm still not getting it right.
And that was based on a Lil Abner character named like Joe Briscriblik or something. But yeah, that was great, and I really enjoyed that. And Julie Schwartz, man, I learned more about writing just talking to him for an hour or two than, you know, because I was like self-taught, you know, for whatever that means in comics and junk.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, that was the path I was going on. But like I said, we did the Psycho comics, which was, you know, just sick humor. You know, it was like parodies and like stuff in the EC vein, but with like, you know, corny stuff. So I was ready. And that way too, I also worked on every level with self-publishing of like writing, drawing, doing production, you know, lettering, knowing how to get the pages ready for print and all this stuff. So by the time at my ripe age of 23, I was ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
and
you mentioned
I was going to school. I went to Parsons School of Design for like illustration and quit that the first year, and then went to School of Visual Arts, which was, you know, started by Bern Hogarth from Tarzan, and like Steve Ditko and Jerry Robinson went there in the 50s and stuff.
Oh wow, yeah.
But I went there for film and video, so I was doing an awful lot of film production and stuff too. And when I was 18, we sold a TV pilot, me and my roommate, about these teenage rock and roll superheroes, and we called the Ultimates of all things. And we produced it, but never sold. So
yeah, well, that's yeah. I mean, that's like, it sounds like sort of like the typical young man, right? Like you're like, I'm it's this goal. No, I'm going to go over here. Now I want film production. And then opportunity knocks, and thankfully you pulled the trigger, so to speak, and you got your foot in the door that way. Well, I mean, that's like
really great, because obviously I worked with so many excellent artists that I grew up with and loved. And like my first job at Cracked, when I was still an assistant, was to get Severin back, because I told the publishers, they had just bought it from the original publisher in Florida and moved it to New York. And so I told the publishers they didn't have John Severin in the book. And I was like, if you don't have John Severin, this magazine is not going to last.
Yeah.
So they tasked me to get Severin at basically any cost. And so I talked to him, and it turned out that he turned it down because the editor I was telling you about offered him a really insulting page rate and wanted a kickback. And so I found out all the artists and writers were giving him a kickback and stuff too. So it was just like, bad dude.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems, well, I mean, how would that even work if it's work for hire? How do you pay a kickback? Like you just,
because like he'd say, I'll give you 100 a page, but you got to send me back 20. So I called Severin, and he was like, you know, and I convinced him, you know, that I was just such a super fan and everything, and that they'd be willing to pay him what he wanted. And so, like, you know, this is what, like 85. He wanted 500 a page, which is still a spectacular amount. And I was like, I'll get it for you. And he also said, well, and also I only want to talk to you. I promise that I won't have to deal with this other editor. And I was like, cool.
Yeah.
So I started, because they hired me because they realized this guy was like, he was ancient. He was like in his 50s or something. And and so they realized, like, you know, this is again the mid 80s, and he was still doing Nixon jokes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, they realized he didn't really have a tap on the youth, you know, the youth market. And, you know, I was basically like 10 years older than the average reader. So like, I think I had a better idea. So they ended up giving me half a book to edit per issue. And that was only like 3 issues before, you know, they bounced them. And like I said, I started putting out the book myself without really telling them.
Yeah.
And then they started seeing the numbers, and they were like, well, let's just keep him.
Yeah. Well, and so John Severin, I think I heard this story from, I think it was Kyle Bridget. And he, friend of the show, Kyle Bridget. And he was saying that Severin left because I don't think it was Al Feldstein, but
oh, you mean from Mad?
Yeah, he left Mad because one of those editors was like, he's not funny. He can't draw funny. And so they just stopped giving him work.
Well, the thing is that, you know, Harvey Kurtzman, Will Elder, Severin, And you know Rene Goscinny? Have you ever heard of him?
I think so.
He created Asterix and Lucky Luke.
Okay, yeah.
He's a French guy. But anyways, in the early 50s, they all had a studio in New York together. And from what John told me, it was really John that came up with the idea of Mad. Because like he had done like a lot of humor for this like newspaper when he was a kid called the Hobo News.
Yeah.
And so it was basically John's idea, but Kurtzman took it and ran with it. So there might have been a little bitterness there.
Oh, okay.
And what happened is I think John might have only worked on 6 or 10 issues of Mad.
Yeah.
But like Kurtzman was getting so busy, he gave up Two-Fisted Tales.
Yeah.
One of the war mags. And so John took over as editor of Two-Fisted Tales. So that was like the official excuse, is that, you know, Kurtzman was too busy. So John took over these magazines. I think might have been Frontline Combat too, or another war magazine. So John was editing his own magazines and doing a lot of drawing for them.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the baloney about John not drawing funny. I mean, you know, Kurtzman would do layouts for everybody. You know, he would do pencil roughs for Wally Wood, Jack Davis, Severin. And so, you know, Severin would do some pretty goofy stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And I thought, you know, I loved it as a kid reading the reprints and junk. And naturally with Cracked, he sure could do some funny stuff. I mean, he would draw, sometimes he would draw like 75% or more of the magazine, but he would do it in like 4, 5, 6 different styles.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we know John Severin's work is almost like he's a straight man in comics, because he does stuff realistically, and because it's so straight, it's funny. But he would also do comics in Bigfoot, you know, or like animation style, and also tons of mediums like wash or paint or pen and ink and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, and that's, I think, what you were saying about like being the straight guy for the art. And like Kyle, I think it was Kyle. We were talking. Yeah, and that's like having that type of relief is important, and it's funny, and it is nice. Just so he interjected, for the record, I'm a fan of Severin, and I think he's funny. So, and also, to the people in the chat, I am deliberately ignoring you. We'll go through, and I see
Tom Smith there. He's the one that put me on to you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, here, let's take just a brief break, and I'll go through some of these because I want to give shout outs. Mark, he says, when I was a kid, I used to run to the candy store to see if the new issue of Cracked hit the stands, and lit up my face when I saw a new one. He is reliving his childhood because I think, so he's like going through and reading all the Cracked, all the Mad magazines. He's, I don't know, he's doing well in retirement, I think. Who else is here? Here we go. Picked up Crack magazines when I find being picked. He's picking them up now when he finds them. As a kid, I would get them and just couldn't wait for the next Mad and enjoyed very much.
Most people's story is that like, oh, I got this Mad, and they were only publishing 8 times a year.
Yeah.
And Cracked was like 10 times a year and had millions of reprint books. Yeah. So if you were jonesing for Mad, you'd go like, I guess I'll pick up this Cracked. King size Cracked, biggest, greatest Cracked collector's edition, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have all the Cracked magazines that I have. Well, I just got a bunch of new ones actually, but like the one we're going to go through, that's the one I had when I was a kid. Like it's not something that I picked up recently, and I think that speaks to it. Why do you think
you picked it up? Batman?
I don't know why. Yeah, probably. I know, like I did get some of these, like you know, like a lot of my Mads. I didn't get them. I didn't buy them. They were bought for me. So like my aunt and uncle, when we'd go on road trips and stuff, my uncle was a huge Mad guy, so we might pick some up, or I might take them for my brother, but they became mine. So, you know.
Well, I do remember first seeing Mad because I had an uncle who was like a sports car driver and motorcycle racer and all this stuff. And I remember being at his house, and under his bed he had Mads and Playboys. So I was probably like 6 or something, and I figure Mad must be really adult if he's got to hide them.
Here I do have. This is Kyle Bridget. He really wants to hear about Bill Ward.
Well, Bill Ward was a fantastic individual. He was another one that wasn't working at Cracked when I was there. Apparently, the previous publisher had kind of screwed him on some payments, so he lost his house, and he was pretty bitter.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But I got in touch with him, and, again, made it obvious I was a big fan, and we'd respect him and everything. But like him and Gene Cole and Don Martin, they were 3 cartoonists that were legally blind that were drawing comics because they had to make income.
Yeah.
So, but Bill and his wife, they were wonderful. After I left Cracked, I put out a book of Bill's art because he owned hundreds of his originals for the pinup art from the 50s and 60s, and they were these giant 21 by 17 drawn on oak tag with crayon and all. I mean, it looks like in print, it looks like it's airbrush, but it's all like crayon and stuff.
Oh, wow. Well, and like Bill Ward, that is an artist honestly, I don't know that much about him. A lot of the artists at the time, especially the ones that worked for Mad, I can pick out usually their styles.
Bill Ward started working in the 40s at Quality Comics, and he drew Black Hawk.
Yeah.
Black Hawk. And
I think I got some issues from the Golden Age. So, yeah.
And also did the strip called Torchy about the blonde gal who was just buxom as all get out.
Like you touched on this a little bit. So you brought Bill Ward back, you brought John Severin back, but then you famously, I think, poached Don Martin from Mad Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
How could you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how did that come about?
Sure. Yeah. Well, Don had been long disconcerted working at Mad because, for 33 years, he didn't own his copyright, didn't own his original art, didn't get reprint money, and they reprinted the heck out of that stuff. And then, even later, Gaines started selling the original art, auctions, and, to artists he liked, he'd give them the money, but, wouldn't give them to some artists he didn't like or that were dead, So I had long heard, that he wasn't happy there, and like he wasn't writing his own stuff anymore because why bother?
Yeah.
Giving new ideas, sort of like Jack Kirby at Marvel in the early 70s. It's like, why come up with new ideas? I'm not getting anything out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he went to DC. But so I had a girlfriend at the time who coincidentally, and it was coincidentally, was the granddaughter of Major Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson, who started DC Comics in the 30s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And her mother was a literary agent and knew Don Martin's lawyer. So I was like, let me get his number. And so we called him, and I was like, we'll match your Mad page rate, which was, I think it was like $1,500. We'll match the page rate. You'll get your artwork back, and you own the copyright. And it was like, zoom.
Well, I was just thinking, because I've wondered for a while, why Don Martin would sometimes stretch gags out. Like there's somewhere it's like 3 pages, and it's like, why? You could tell this in 1 page. I think 1,500 page rate.
In the magazine or the paperbacks?
In the magazine.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess a $1,500 page rate. That's a good reason to stretch it out.
And another thing about Gaines is that ad agencies would call up Mad and go like, oh, we want to use this artist. We want to use this artist. And we're like, nope. So they could have gotten buku bucks, I mean, some people every now and then would be able to find the artist. And like Don did like a bunch of ads for United Airlines.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty cool. But you got to wonder why, like Mort Drucker, like only did American Graffiti.
Yeah.
Movie poster when he should have done hundreds of movie posters like Jack Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was because George Lucas tracked him down, Mort Drucker. And the reason Jack Davis has done so many movie posters and record covers is because he got banned from Mad in the early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
When he left with Kurtzman to go do Help and Trump and stuff like that, he couldn't come back to Mad. They wouldn't let him back. So he had to make a living and become a millionaire.
Yeah.
Which none of the other Mad artists became, because they were stuck. And again, it sounds like 1,500 a page is nice, but yeah, you get like, several thousand for a record cover or a movie poster or whatever, and so Matt, Gaines figured he owned all these guys and wouldn't let them do work anywhere else.
Yeah, that's well, in publishing, I mean, comics especially, maybe it's just especially because that's the one I'm most familiar with. They're notoriously like, I don't know if stingy is the word, but I mean, like, you think of the most famous case of like DC Comics with Siegel and Schuster, or like Bill Finger, who is like destitute. And when the Batman movie came out, like, he had nothing. And comics historically have been really, really bad about.
Well, again, that it was all publishing.
Yeah,
that was just the standard for all publishing. It's like, it was work for hire. So whether you're a photographer or a writer or this or that, you got paid a one-time fee, and you were happy that you got paid, and then they could reprint it constantly.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point you make, though, that it's like it was everybody, and it's my own bias of what I.
Well, of course, like I said, I was a freelancer and an editor, so I was on both sides of the table.
Mm-hmm.
So I respected the artists immensely, and through my reign at Cracked, I never did work for hire. So all the artists would own their own work and everything.
Yeah.
Like, I could have told the publisher, they were new to publishing, the new publishers. And I could have said, like, well, the standard is you do a work for hire where they sign away their rights and no reprints. And that was another thing. I got them reprint money too.
Oh, nice.
Like even if, they hadn't worked for the magazine for decades or whatever, I'd try and track down them or their family or something.
Yeah. Wow. That's like, I mean, that's fantastic that you did that.
Well, like, like you said, I knew about the Siegel Schuster stuff when that Superman movie came out when I was a kid. And, how much they got ripped off, and that, like, Schuster in the 60s was blind, blind artist, and he was a delivery boy.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought a messenger, and he brought some stuff to DC once, and like either the publisher or Mort Wessinger saw him and went like, gave him like $10, like, never come here again.
That is depressing. That's like just so. Yeah, I think I may have gotten the stories mixed up, but yeah, I think it was like the only reason they did anything with Siegel and Schuster was because like word got out and they were just shamed into it.
Yeah, well, it was Neil Adams like started a campaign when the Superman movie came out where it was like, oh, it's a multi-million-dollar movie, and and these guys got $15 for it,
Yeah.
But Siegel had worked well into the mid 60s at DC writing.
Yeah. My goodness.
So that's the thing. It's like, there's no benefits, there's no health care. I mean, we did get health care for Severin and Don Martin at Cracked, and any other artists could be part of it. They could pay into it if they wanted to. Yeah. At a reduced rate, what they'd normally be paying. But the fact that, artists never got any health care or residuals or royalties, it was just killed me because, again, Gene Colan, Don Martin and Bill Ward were legally blind, and the only way they could make money is to keep drawing, you know, and they would draw like an inch away from the page. And
yeah, golly, that's like I'm depressed now, Mort. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
I think you've ruined my night.
Well,
but no, I like the other side of it is like you seem to like have really done a good job of like making it right, or at least doing what you had within your power, you know. I did get a little distracted by a comment that I have to bring up. This is an anonymous Facebook user.
You know the story?
I know.
Oh, geez. I got a great photo. Well, it was really weird because like over the years before I was at Cracked, I would like bump into Bill Gaines in the weirdest places. Like I remember once at South Street Seaport, I was working as a toll-free telephone operator at J&R Music World. I was probably like 18, 19. And so I went to South Street Seaport for lunch. And in a ironic and iconic moment, I was going up the escalator while he was coming down. It was like prophetic.
Yeah.
And then
did you make eye contact?
Well, I knew who he was. I don't think so, but yeah. And then like a couple of years later, me and some friends went to see the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus at Madison Square Garden. And of course we had like the super high cheap seats, right? Yeah. And so we go to get some popcorn at a concession stand. Who's in front of us? Like 300-pound Bill Gaines, you know, because he had a box office.
Yeah.
You know, a big like, you know, one of those giant like luxury rooms at the top, but came down to the cheap seats to get some popcorn. And so you know, oh, and another time is like me and some friends got hired to videotape a because I told you I was also in video production, to videotape an EC convention. Mm-hmm. And so that was another time there was a panel with Bill, and you know, I don't know if I should really say this. Like, kids, don't do what I did, but all of us cameramen were basically tripping, and we all had earpieces, and we were going like, "Look at that fat fuck over there." we were horrible kids. We were horrible. But so, anyways, within a couple of years of working at Cracked, we were using a lot of mad people undercover with, you know, under pseudonyms, because if Bill knew that they were working there, you know, he would have bounced them.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like with Mad, you could only get so many pages a month. Mm-hmm. You know, they tried to get Severin back a lot of times, and he told me it was like, well, what, they're going to give me 4 or 5 pages at a good rate, but I can draw like 20 pages at Cracked, you know. Yeah. So I had a lot of spies at Mad, and at one convention, I was with a bunch of friends and decided to go over to the Mad table, you know, because Mad had a table at the convention. Yeah. And I was a skateboarder and stuff at the time and everything. So I saw they had an Alfred E. Newman skateboard, and it turned out that Bill's son, Chris, was working the table. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh man, I really want this. I need this. And he was like, so I bought it. And and I was like, say, does Mad still have tours at the offices? And he goes like, sure. And he's like, here's my card, give me a call. And my art director, Cliff Mott, was right next to me. And we needed some business cards made up. You know, the publisher said, you should make up some business cards. And so I took the business card, handed it to Cliff, and go, put Sylvester's head on there and make some up. You know, so like, because we always get accused of swiping Mad. Yeah. Might as well just swipe their business card. Yeah. You know? So anyways, about a week or so later, there's more story to that con thing and interacting with Mad that maybe I'll tell you later, which borders on the criminal. But a couple of weeks later, I call up Chris Gaines and I go like, hey, yeah, I met you at the con. I want to set up a tour, and go see the Mad offices and everything. So we did. I went because, again, we were like, 25, 26.
Yeah.
Me and my art director, Cliff. And I one of the rare times I had an assistant editor. And he was the cousin of that girl I was going out with. So he was also a grandson of Major Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson, who was a business partner with Bill Gaines's dad in the 30s. So we get the tour, they show us around, they pull out all these drawers with original art, and we're like, wow. And so we see Don Martin's art, and we're like, gee, why isn't Don Martin working with you guys anymore? And they go, because his wife's a bitch. We're like, oh, that's nice. And so finally, after all this tour, Gaines's son brings us into Bill's office.
Yeah.
And, it's got the Mad Zeppelin or dirigible and King Kong in the window and EC, the horror host paintings and all this stuff. And we're like, whoa. And then we hear like, Bill stomping down the hall and everything. And, we didn't know if we were getting away with this or not. I took it for granted. He didn't know who we were and junk, right?
Because it's not like there's like a LinkedIn profile where they're like, oh, that's the famous Mort Todd, our competition.
Plus, I was wearing shades. I had like a Robin Underoos t-shirt on, and
why did they put you in charge of a magazine?
Right. And I had my Mad skateboard.
Yeah.
And so he comes stomping into the office, and Chris, his son, goes like, Dad, we got some young EC. No, he goes, Dad, we got some old EC fans here. Because, we were talking about Tales from the Crypt and Old Mad and everything. And he looks at us and goes, those aren't old EC fans. And I was like, oh, shit. Like we got narked. And I look around, there's no other exit and all this stuff. And then Bill goes, those are young EC fans. So anyways, I got him to sign my Alfred E. Newman skateboard that I still have.
Oh, thank God.
To Mort from, Bill Gaines, William E. Gaines. And so we took a photo of him signing it with me going over him. And so I thought I'd just be too big a dick to print it in cracked, Yeah. So I ended up sending it to Thrasher, and they printed it.
Oh, what issue of Thrasher is that?
Oh, like I know offhand. I could tell you what issue Beppo the Super Monkey came to Earth, but
I gotta find that. Hold on,
I got it somewhere. I'll get you the info. I got a scan of it.
All right, that is.
But so basically, cool. The caption is, "Why is the Madman signing the Cracked Man's deck?" So anyways, Gaines found out about it, and one of our spies told us that that Mad had a Christmas party later, and Gaines was it was in the bathroom. They were at urinal next to each other, and Gaines was like, that guy has brass balls.
Oh my God.
I got photos from the trip. I got also, about the Mad movie from the early 80s.
Up the Academy.
Because they had the statue in their lobby.
Yeah.
So I got a picture of me and my skateboard next to the Newman statue.
Nice. Well, and that's you were like a troll, right? That's what we
before it was cool.
Yeah. Not only that, but when when Don Martin,
I thought they deserved it. You know,
yeah.
they get all this fucking, you know, la-di-da press and everything, and they're fucking over their artists and shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
I mean,
and then
another time too, I found out 60 Minutes was going to do a, you know, kiss-ass piece on Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
So I tracked down the producer and called him, and I was like, "You're 60 Minutes. You're supposed to shit on people.
Yeah.
You know, you're supposed to like dig up the dirt." And I gave him all this information. No, it was just a total kiss-ass piece about like, like John Fricke. Well, another thing too, I learned, I didn't know really at the time, they had 7 editors. You know, they were putting out 10 issues a year. I was putting out 12 plus a bunch of reprints, one editor, you know, and it was just like when they showed the editorial meeting on 60 Minutes, I was just like, God, no wonder they suck, you know, because everybody wants to put their 2 cents in and it just waters down everything. And that one editor, Ficarra, right? You know, John Ficarra, he had a drum kit in the office. So it was like whenever anyone made a joke, he'd go boom, boom, you know, it's like, oh.
That's pretty corny.
I was a punk rocker, so you know, that sort of stuff just
you get to do that one time, right? You get to do the rim shot one time.
Right. But that's just it. In this modern age, you press a button for the rim shot, you know. But to have a whole drum kit in the office.
But the other like trolley thing you did that I loved was when Don Martin came over and you touted him as crackedest artist.
Exactly. Like you say, it's all trolling because, you know, Cracked got like such a rep of just like ripping off Mad, you know, that I was like, yeah, we're ripping him off.
Well, so with like this talking about Mad, like DC and Marvel, right? Like, you know, what's his face? Stan Lee, he would refer to DC as the distinguished competition, right? And there was always like this sense, at least on its face, that there was like, this is a gentlemanly rivalry, a rising tide lifts all boats. How did Mad feel about you?
Oh, Gaines felt every issue we sold was money out of his pocket, you know, and again, as we said, it's like people would only buy Cracked if Mad wasn't there.
Yeah.
It's not like Mad was losing any money, but he literally thought like when we were $1.49, that was $1.49 out of his pocket every issue, you know?
Yeah.
So no, he hated it. He hated Cracked, you know, and it was just like, that's what I mean. He was just so, you know, he would just have such revenge against artists that would dare do anything not Mad and stuff, you know? So,
yeah. Did you get the sense that like, because you mentioned like you had spies on the inside, did that like trickle down like to that editorial staff in
Mad?
Like, yeah.
Well, I'd kind of be talking out of school here. But
I don't mind.
Right, yeah. The one time that I was very petty. One time was because of that. You and people here no doubt have heard of Bill Ray.
Yes.
Like he did the back cover in that issue.
Yeah. He goes by William Ray now.
Well, now he's a fine artist.
Yeah, and guy, he does some beautiful stuff. I have to say.
But he was, you know, he thought working at Cracked was beneath him, basically.
Okay.
So he did some pretty sloppy stuff. Mm-hmm. There's one and really horrible with deadlines. And there's one time when I had to send the book out the next day. Normally, I would give artists deadlines like weeks before the book was really due because I know what artists are like, you know. And so this book really, it was Star Trek V, as a matter of fact, the parody of Star Trek V with the whales and everything. And it had to go out the next day. So he brought in the art unfinished. Mm. And so I had to stay up all night and do the backgrounds myself, you know, and really pissed off my girlfriend. She was not happy with that. And so, like I said, he just was getting sloppier and sloppier stuff. And then finally, out of the blue, he comes in and he goes like, you know what? I'm going to do the best job ever for you. You know, I'm just going to give you the greatest work I've ever done. And I'm like, okay. And then I find out from my spies at Mad that he took his portfolio over to Mad. And they were like, this looks kind of sloppy. Why don't you go back to Cracked and do some nice stuff and see what happens? And I was like, and he was also the one that outed some of the creators.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, boy, was I pissed, you know? Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, Bill, you want to do the best job you've ever done for Cracked ever? You know that HBO series, Tales from the Crypt? I want you to do a parody of that, and the host will be Bill Gaines, and I want him to be the fattest, grossest, with all kinds of warts, and the most disgusting looking character you've ever drawn. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay. So, he did the job. It wasn't so great. I think he even swiped some panels from like Davis or Feldstein and stuff. And I was just like, whatever. But after that, I didn't take his calls anymore.
Yeah.
And then he ended up doing, what was it, Wilbur or Herbert or something?
Monroe.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And which I thought, again, would look like Kurtzman swipes,
Yeah. That was, I was a big Monroe fan. I still am a big Monroe fan. I love that style. I thought it was so cool. I thought, yeah.
You ever seen Hey Look?
No, I haven't.
Hey Look was a strip.
Wait. I think I just got a copy of that actually.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was a book. It was a strip that Kurtzman did at Marvel in the 40s. In the 50s. Yeah. And it was one-page gags. And I mean, you've seen Kurtzman's humor by himself when he doesn't have Wally Wood or Severin doing the finishes, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty. And that's what he went with Monroe, It was just like, just swiping Kurtzman's basics.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
That's just one man's opinion.
Hey, not just one man. That's Mort Todd's opinion. So don't hold it against me, Bill Ray, all right? Come on the show.
I'm bipolar schizophrenic. Maybe that is two people's opinion.
I want to get into this issue because you did have the brilliant idea of doing a live flip through. Who were some of the artists that you had working under pseudonyms for you?
Lou Silverstone.
All right.
Who was one of the more prolific, movie parody, TV parody writers.
Yeah.
And that's it. He'd only get so many pages a month. And so he ended up doing like at least, sometimes 2 or more parodies per issue for us, and
yeah.
Well, the guy who did the cover for this Batman issue, his name's Rurik Tyler, and he used his name at Mad, Rurik Tyler. So, but here, he might have signed it Madman too, and this cover is signed Badman. Mm. So, yeah, there were a few different writers and artists, and a few people that were just starting out at Mad, but they knew they weren't going to get enough work, so they'd work under other names.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Before we shift over, because hold on, let me pull in this. Oh no, wrong move. Add. There we go. So we're gonna flip through Mad 248 and just get some info from the editor-in-chief of this issue. Before I do, though, I want to just kind of cruise through and see if we missed anything. This one stands out. Steve Ditko worked for Cracked. Was that under your?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, after Severin, Ditko was the first person I called because, I'm just such a big Ditko fan, and he's supposed to be such an alienist and hard to deal with. His name was in the phone book back when they had phone books.
Yeah.
And so I called him up, and he was at my office in like 15 minutes, and brought a portfolio, which was like, I didn't need to see the portfolio really,
Yeah,
and
that's kind of hilarious. Like,
yeah, but he had a lot of humor stuff that he'd done in the 50s for Charlton.
Okay,
and he actually gave me a cover proof for an issue of Charlton. Had this magazine called Dig This Crazy Comic. And so he gave it to me. I was like, cool. Yeah. But so yeah, he would visit a lot because, like I said, he was just a couple blocks away. So, he would spend hours in the office, and we just talk about everything under the sun. And the same when I was at Marvel 2 years later. But I had done I created and drew a strip called Robot Wars, which was basically, it was basically a ripoff of Spy versus Spy, but with Transformers.
Yeah.
So it'd be a one-page, no dialogue, where one transforming robot gets the better of the other one. So I wrote and drew that for a couple issues, and then gave it to Steve, and he did that for a while. And he also did like parodies of Blundercats, and we did one issue that was all like if Cracked was Russian, was a Soviet issue.
Yeah.
And we did like Trash Formers versus Decepticons or something. That was they were all commies and stuff. So he did a bunch of stuff, and he did them in different mediums too, which is real fun because with comics you just do pen and ink and stuff, but with these he would do wash or marker or do a shade. Since it was black and white, so there's a variety of styles. And
yeah, that's odd. Like, and I never knew Ditko did any work for Cracked.
Hello.
I'm ignorant. Like, you're learning for the first time what viewers have known for a long time, which is I'm ignorant. Here, hold on. Mr. Wong asks, does all / most original Cracked art, is that in the possession of the artist then?
Yeah, the time I was there for 5 years, as soon as we got the originals back from the printer, because back then we didn't have scanners. We would send the artwork to the printers, they would scan it and print it, and as soon as we got it back, we'd send it right back to the artists.
Yeah, excellent. That's awesome. Oh yeah, what I was going to say with the Ditko thing is, it's like I've learned a ton about Mad just from doing this channel and like rereading reading for the first time old issues. But it's I've learned a lot from like viewers of this show who are like, oh, and this person and this person and that person. I mean, it's like, yeah, it has you guys had a very deep bench, and I certainly did not appreciate that at the time. So,
well, also, a lot of artists famous for Mad started at Cracked, like Al Jaffe was at he did Shut Ups at Cracked and a few other stories, and Angelo Torres.
I love Angelo. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. No, it's Cracked.
It's
see, I don't know if you know the actual origin of Cracked. Is that like basically Atlas Comics, before they were Marvel, they were called Atlas. Yeah, and there was like comics basically went out of business in like 57, 56, 57 because of the comics code and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah,
and Atlas had an implosion, so they were basically just using inventory and weren't hiring any new artwork and everything. And so Saul Brodsky, who was their art director, went over to this guy who was the publisher of Cracked, and they created Cracked, and it was almost all Atlas artists. Even Jack Kirby did some stuff. Seeing Jack Kirby do parodies of Sinatra and all this stuff, it was like, so a lot of the Atlas artists, went to Cracked, and some of them went to Mad after that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't realize
the origins of Cracked.
That's yeah. See, I'm learning a lot, and now I'm gonna have to start. The problem is now is I'm trying to collect all the Mad issues, but then I'm gonna like move on, and I'm gonna try to collect all the Cracked issues.
God bless you.
Yeah. So
you know about the book, if you're Cracked, you're happy.
I don't know about that.
2 volumes. like 2 thick volumes by author Mark Arnold, and he interviewed everybody. This book was, I think it was less than 10 years ago, and I understand it's out in hardcover now. But it's got a lot of great interviews, but it also has a complete checklist of every freaking issue, including the reprints. And he is the only person I know on the planet that has a collection of everything. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want some good background on Cracked and what issues to like target at first, you know, you should pick up the books.
I will. This is the last one I'm going to look at real quick before we move into the flip through. But what was your favorite repeating comic or feature in Cracked?
It's hard to say. I mean, you know.
And then a follow up. What are you drinking? That was he had that on.
Well, that's another Severin story. Well, I mean, as far as repeating features of Cracked, you know, some I didn't create. You know, were existing. Far as there, I created a lot of them because I thought, you know, if sometimes if there wasn't like a big movie or TV show to make fun of, you could build an audience based on these repeating features. You know, they'd be like, oh, cool, more Robot Wars or G.I. Joke or something like that, you know? Yeah. And so, yeah, I would, you know, I'd just dive headfirst into whatever I was working on at the moment. So, you know, they're all of equal value. I mean, I was really happy to get Bill Ward back to do the Cracked interviews, you know, because I thought it was Nanny Dickering there was a saucy tomato.
Yeah. Before we move into this, I do want to say, if people want to support you, they can go to your website, right? You have actually, I have a few things I'm going to add in. morttodd.com. And I put that easy to remember, easy to type. You can, that link is down in the description of this video, and you have a little bit of everything. You have, is there like a store on this?
Yeah. Every page you link on will have like videos and link to buy and artwork, you know, examples of the artwork and all that.
Well, yeah, I just clicked on this. I think it's slow. My internet is slow, but that comedy of Jack Davis. I think I put it away already. I should have taken it out, but you sent me a copy of that. Thank you. In person. Yeah, I didn't even thank you in person. Thank you so much for that. That was incredible. So here, look at, I'll make you the full screen person. Yeah, this is a collection of Jack Davis's
like over
work.
100 pages of everything that Davis did at Cracked when he was blackballed from Mad.
Yeah, and I did a little bit of a flip through of that and just explored it, and it's all, I mean, it's Jack Davis. It's all beautiful. Jack Davis. Yeah, it's like you know what you're getting, and it's freaking awesome.
And I got a Severin one too, Comedy of John Severin.
Oh, nice. Yeah. For those of you who may be under the delusion that he's not a comedic artist.
Right.
There we go.
Well, yeah, all this Severin stuff, again, it's over 100 pages of his work from the 50s and 60s. So it was like soon after Mad.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is like, you can buy it off the website, and then
share that video so I could take a bathroom break.
Okay. Yeah. Where's that video? Right, hold on. Oh, right here.
Yeah, right under the cover.
All right.
So take me off camera so I can go to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, you can't hear the music. Well, it's some jazzy organ. It's all like do 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 da do do da do 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 da do do da do 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 do. I can say this for sure. I'm going to mute it because it's like blasting in my ear. The Jack Davis one for sure is 100. You got to check it out. It's great. If you want to see a little bit of what's inside on one of the recent Flippin' Throughs, the live ones, I went through it and we explored it. It's awesome. Check that out. Also, well, I have your attention. If you would like, please hit the thumbs up on the video. Hit subscribe if you like this. If you like this interview, I'm trying to do one interview every month. And so I want to get somebody from Mad or Cracked, or maybe even just on the outskirts of comedy magazines and all of that stuff. So thank you. It does look like Blossom. You should see the new one that my mom made me. Also, he has these too. I don't know. Oh, he's back. So here, hit thumbs up, hit subscribe. It's worth it because you're worth it too. Mr.
I
Todd,
thought you'd be wearing your cracked hat today.
Well, you didn't watch the unboxing video because my head is so enormous. I can't buckle the hat.
What?
Yeah, I am a freak. I got a freakish head. But I have it. It's in a place of honor right here, always.
But yeah, we only made a few for when we did the Kickstarter, so we're not selling them because
you're not selling them anymore.
Expensive as heck.
Yeah. So I guess see if they get. You know how like you go on the airline if you're a big boy, you need to get like the seatbelt extender. I need to see if they have one for people with giant heads like mine.
Let me tell you quickly the story of my Severin drink.
Oh, yeah.
Because, again, I was like 23, 24, and, I had my share of drinks, but I never had like a favorite or, how some people are like, only drink this or whatever. And I was not a beer fan. But one Christmas, Severin sent me a bottle of Bushmills, which is a whiskey from the oldest Irish distillery in Ireland. And it's ironic because he was a devout Catholic, but this is a Protestant distillery. And that was all he would drink. And once he sent me a bottle, man, that's all I would drink. And that's all I've drank for, like 30 years.
Yeah. Well, that is very nice. The true Catholics, though, they only drink Grand Chartreuse. That's what I learned.
And I also learned, too, that round bottles of whiskey means that it's Catholic and square bottles means it's Protestant.
Really? Maybe because of that. Do you know that thing that the Catholics have?
They have a few things.
I am a Catholic. I should know the names of these things, but I don't.
Sepulture or something.
Yeah, that's it.
I think it's just basically so like if you see someone walking around with a round bottle and you're a proddy, you beat the hell out of them.
You're like, do I deck this man or not?
Right?
I don't know. Oh, okay. He's got the right bottle. Okay.
Wow, we're over an hour in. How long do your things usually run?
It depends. Sometimes an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. Bill Morrison, we couldn't stop talking. It just all depends. I just try to go with the flow. And
well, I'll tell you, I've forgotten all about my toothache. So.
Wonderful. That might be the Bushmills, though.
Like I said, that's sort of a medical, antiseptic.
Yeah. So here we have. Oopsies. Oops. See, that's the only problem with this is like takes some finagling sometimes. So this is cracked issue 248. came out in October 1989.
So you'll note that like cover dates are always a few months ahead.
Yeah.
And that's for, for newsstands, so that if, they'll leave it on the newsstand for a while. So actually it would have probably come out in July 89, which is when the Batman movie came out.
Yeah.
And so, I knew it was coming. So, we did it. I think Mad did a Batman issue like 6 months later. Because, again, they would have all their 7 editors sit around, look at box office receipts, and go, should we do this or should we not do this? I knew our kids wanted Batman.
Yeah.
And in fact, I made a trip to the UK when they were shooting Batman and crashed the set and took like all kinds of photos of the Batmobile miniatures, of the whole streets of Gotham City, the storyboards, all kinds of stuff. Because again, my off-mentioned girlfriend, the granddaughter of Major Malcolm, she had a friend, because she was British. So we had a long distance love affair. And so, she would visit here, I'd visit there.
Yeah.
So we were over there, and a good friend of hers was the assistant art director of the film. Anton First was the art director, and she was the assistant. So, she kind of snuck us in. We went to the front gate, and the guard there was like, "Do you have a chit?" And I was like, I had never heard the word chit before.
Yeah.
But it's like a pass or a ticket or whatever. And we were like, no. And the guard goes, well, if you go down there around the fence, you'll be able to get in. So it was at Pinewood Studios where they shot all the James Bond films and everything, And it was incredible. Like they shot it on the 007 set, which is the largest indoor stage in the world and all this stuff. And it was a gas.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that seems like a lot of fun just by itself, but probably double fun when you can use it to professionally needle your competition.
Well, that's the thing, is Warner Brothers owned DC and they owned Mad.
Yeah.
And they didn't get their stuff together until months later and everything, So come on.
Yeah, like I always thought it was strange that like Mad's parodies were just, I mean, they were always just out of date by the time they hit newsstands.
Well, like I said, they had to look at sales figures. I mean, box office, all this stuff. I just did it by gut, and also we had a closer deadline to print date than they did. Ours, I think, was like 2 months, and theirs was like at least 4.
Okay.
So, when I first started at Cracked, one of the first things I did was go through the sacks of mail that they'd sent up from the old publisher in Florida. And one of them had a rotting anchovy in the envelope. And it said, like, you suck, you rip off Mad, and all this stuff. And then I found out a few years later from my spies that Mad was getting those letters. It's like, Cracked already did this,
Oh, that's great. What I love about that too is that like that type of like fan interaction with something that they love.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop, right? I mean, like people get that way about like The Simpsons or like Family Guy, where they're like, yeah. It's like, oh, well, Family Guy just rips off The Simpsons. The Simpsons did it. Yeah. Yeah. The South Park had that brilliant episode. But,
well, you see that inside cover?
Yes.
That, again, is probably about the 6th time I've mentioned my old girlfriend. That's her art.
Oh, how do you say that name?
Well, that's, she doesn't really like to be associated with, she's like a famous architect now, and she thinks this is just like too lurid and beneath her.
Oh.
And her father was a famous book writer too, children's book writer.
Yeah.
But, because I've talked to her about it, and she was like, you know, like I said, she's ultra respected and doesn't want to be associated with all this girly stuff. That, you know, you can see the Bill Ward influence there.
Yeah.
And the first, I think the first time I had Bill Ward do a new story was in Cracked Monster Party, and it was Nanny Dickering interviewing Elvira, and she painted the cover and she inked the Bill Ward stuff, because at first I wasn't sure if Bill could still do the pen work because he was blind, but
yeah,
he did all of them after that, so it was fine.
Yeah. I'm very interested, like you mentioned this a couple times, like with the artists who are blind. And I mean, like, I know there's like a difference between like legally blind and being like, you know, not being able to see anything.
Right,
but
yeah.
You know, like the Don Martin thing is surprising because his art is so consistent throughout the years that I would never have guessed.
Well, Don's eye problems started in the 50s, and he had like all these revolutionary eye surgeries back in the day, pre-laser days, when they would actually cut and sew up your eyeballs. Mm. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
I think he had some like lenses sewed onto his eyeball.
Oh. Yeah. I don't even know like how to respond.
Yeah. Hopefully no one's eating.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's just like, that's insane. This is Mike Ricigliano.
Ricigliano, yeah.
Ricigliano.
And Roger Brown, I believe, wrote it. They were a great combo. They did a lot of stuff together. That was really fun.
Yeah. And Mike Ricigliano did the sort of like margins cartoons of like the spies and sabs, right?
Yep, spies versus saboteurs. And you know, I actually just read somewhere for the first time in my life the other day what the term for that is, like with that and like Sergio Aragonese, and it was like some Swedish word, like Wolumbies or something. I should have made a note to remember.
Yeah. And that is being like just like the little things hidden, marginal. All right. And so we have also like this, the Harried with Children, by like two people I have never heard of before, which is not surprising, but Rob Orzechowski,
yeah.
And then Rich Kriegel.
That was Lou Silverstone. That was one of Lou's pseudonyms.
Okay.
Rich Kriegel and Tony Frank were Silverstone's. Rob Orzechowski, there's this artist, Gray Morrow, who is in a few of the Cracks and in All My Monsters Attack and everything. And he was a favorite artist of mine since I was a kid. But he had a bunch of kids under his tutelage, like younger artists. And Rob Orzechowski was one of them. So he turned me on to a few of them. And I think also, I think there are a couple of more in that issue too. So we'll see.
Yeah. So like, how does something like this, like, you know, Harried with Children, as the editor-in-chief, like, how did you decide like to go with this? And like, what's the process of like, this is what I want you to do, now do it?
Like, well, as opposed to Mad, I mean, you know, I was running the thing. So, you know, I liked Married with Children. Mm-hmm. Figured let's do a parody. And with most parodies, with the movies, TV, everything, I would usually come up with like a rough plot. You know, I would usually come up with the title, you know, the parody title, and then, you know, like, and then do like a bum, and then here's the punchline, you know, and you fill in the rest.
Yeah.
And then once I got the script and the art, I would, you know, type it all up for typesetting, and I'd do final edits there and, you know, goose up some of the gags and, you know.
So is it difficult? Because you yourself, you're a writer as well. You know, like when I think of Married with Children, it's like that is a parody in itself, right? So when it comes to like parodying a parody, how do you approach that as a writer?
Well, you take it to the meta level, you know. I mean, I don't think I've read this issue since it came out, you know, and that's like over 30 years ago. So if I went panel by panel, I could probably see what I did and how I goosed it. But I was also, I was just such a fan of media and culture. I would also make fun of like the actors or things they had been in it before, or, or scandals they had been in or whatever that, take it out of just like a straight parody of the TV show.
Yeah.
I should probably get a copy and read it.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have a copy of all of these?
In storage, yeah, and I haven't seen them in decades.
Oh, geez. Yeah, you gotta get them all out.
Yeah.
Come on.
This guy, George Glatter.
Yeah.
See, I can tell who wrote it just by looking at the layouts, because, even though Severin drew it, George Glatter was a prolific writer for Cracked and also Archie Comics, and created Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And
no way.
Yeah, oh yeah. Way. And that's just it. Like I've been at comic conventions and seen like Dan DeCarlo original art, Archie art, and go, Glader wrote that, because Glader would do thumbnails for the artist.
Oh yeah.
He started out as a cartoonist, but then went on to writing. So he would give every story he would do in layouts. And so you could tell by the body positions, whatever. And the thing is, artists like it, and like Severin especially, because it was a springboard. You could choose to either follow it or do something completely different, but you have something to base it on.
Yeah.
And another great thing about George is he would provide reference up the wazoo, because like this was pre-digital, right? So, you wouldn't have reference for, the Batmobile from the movie or this or that, or certain skateboards or, whatever. And George would provide it. He would clip it, paper clip it with the script and everything. So
yeah,
he was just great. George was one of the guys that I would say, like, we're doing a Batman issue. What's your idea? George, I wouldn't have to do nothing to,
yeah,
tweak a word here and there when we printed it, but he was just such a pro that,
Who, yeah. I was about to ask like just a bullshit question. I was like, it's gonna be like, who's the worst person to work with? But I only said that because I wanted to explain why I just started laughing to myself.
Well, it's strange because, I like try to get along with everybody and, have a happy medium. Same with, film production and junk, where it's like, it doesn't have to be drama.
Yeah.
You can all have fun, and the same comics, but every now and then you get some malcontents. And like a couple of years after I left Cracked, I was out in California, and the Bill Ray we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
He was working at Spumco, which was John Chrisfalusi. They were doing Ren and Stimpy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I became friendly with Chrisfalusi. I probably shouldn't admit that. And
oh yeah, didn't he get involved in some scandal?
Yeah,
oh yeah, we don't talk about it.
And but I was like, like him and another guy that I'd known from New York at Spumco, we just didn't get along. And Chris Falusi is like, well, when you're in a position of power, you're always going to make enemies. And I was like, I'd never considered that, because I thought, could get along with everybody.
Yeah.
So as far as like, not enjoying working with certain people, like I said, you would turn in sloppy, undone jobs and everything. And it didn't make me happy.
Yeah. Well, and like what he was saying about like, you make enemies. It's like people need somebody to blame sometimes.
Right.
and that's like the boss.
Yeah.
Like, that's like,
I know. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the 25-year-old boss. I'm the bad guy. Yeah. And so like the Cracked lens, that was a regular feature for years and Cracked, and was a pretty cheap thing, easy thing to do. You just take photos and write gags to them. But these photos in particular, I remember picking out myself because, like I said, you didn't have the internet, but there were a couple there were two places in New York that had, like movie studio stills, like celebrity stills and movie posters and junk Jerry Ollinger's on 14th Street. And there was the other one, Movie Star News, that was originally owned by Irving Klaw. Do you know who he is? Because his daughter Paula was running it then, but he was the guy that did all the original Betty Page photos in the 50s. You know Betty Page?
I am familiar, yeah.
So it was sort of almost like, EC Comics, like they got scandalized and like almost run out of town on a rail for the lewd and lascivious photos. So they turned themselves into like a movie still store, so you could buy like Clark Gable photos or whatever. But that's where I got all of these, like probably like $5 a piece, and picked them all out because like that one on the bottom there is
it's the old Serial, right?
Yeah. And the one next to it is this German film, The Man Who Laughs, that they based the Joker on in the comics.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, it's I think Victor Hugo story called The Man Who Laughs.
Yeah,
about this little kid who gets kidnapped. He's a prince, gets kidnapped by gypsies who would like carve grins into kids and change their faces to turn them into freaks for carnivals and junk.
Like, what was it in like the 1930s? Like, if I was growing up, I'd be like, I feel like my number one risk is running into a gypsy. Like, Mom, I can't go outside. The gypsies are gonna get me. Like, are you kidding me?
If it wasn't a gypsy, it'd be a hobo probably.
Do you want me to become a werewolf? Oh, here's some more Ricigliano.
Yeah.
I have to address this. Kyle Bridget is stirring the pot, as he does notoriously. I don't respect Ricigliano. And I think I had said, I just don't like the style.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's just one man's opinion, right, Mort?
Well, I disrespect your opinion. No. No, I think his work is deceptively simple.
Yeah.
I mean, you like Aragones?
I do, yeah.
What don't you like about this?
Well, this is what I think. I think that I didn't grow up with it. I think that is probably that's the thing that's the difference, is that one, I grew up reading much more than the other. And so, yeah,
I don't indoctrination.
It is, yeah. I don't know. I don't know that I would. I think I understand the point you were going to make, which is like, it's the same style. It's like very simple lines. These like very swooping strokes. And yeah, I don't disagree. And I wouldn't say that it's not well done. I just don't like it. But I respect the artist. It's like one of those weird things where it's like, I can recognize why people like it, but for some reason I just don't. I don't know. This Hudendini.
Are you familiar with Hudendini?
No, but I remember seeing it in a few other issues. And
that had probably started like late 60s, mid to late 60s, and cracked.
Yeah, and I really like it. It just reminded me of like an older cartoon. It seemed almost like anachronistic for something that's going to be in 1989.
Well, again, he was another artist that had worked at Crack for decades and wasn't when I came back and I brought him back. But he was an Argentinian artist, lived in New York, and and this was like a pantomime strip where they escape from jail every time and then get caught at the end and with a twist. And he was a super great guy. And he, like I said, he was Argentinian. He'd always pronounce it Houdini. Houdini. Because I didn't realize it until later that it's based on Houdini.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
And it was only like when I heard him say it, it's like Houdini. That was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he usually brought his artwork in, and we'd hang out, and it was always fun. But a couple times he would mail it in, and I can always remember I'd open up the package and just get this big waft of cigarette smoke. Like a lot of artists are just like chain smokers. And then every now and then there'd be like whiteout, for corrections. It'd be like cigarette ashes in the whiteout and stuff.
Yeah, I like the style. I like how he plays around with the borders and stuff. And like you have the full bleed over here, and this guy's like he almost like belongs in both of them. Like the perspective is going into that one, but he's in front of this one. I like it. I really like this guy quite a bit, actually.
I did some work with him after Crack too. We did this like bilingual Spanish English comic called Pepito. He did some great work, and at the same time he was working on this other comic that was like kind of adult. It was called Sexy Super Spy.
Sexy.
Yeah.
That was, I'm sure in the native Spanish, it probably sounded a lot better. This is like a take on the just like the trading cards.
Yeah.
Which at the time were like a boom again, right? I mean,
well, that's where I ripped off the title for Monsters Attack, was from Mars Attack.
Yeah.
Because I basically wanted that same feeling of, like old school stuff.
Yeah.
And is that Pat Redding's art there?
Let me see. Yeah, Pat Redding and Pete Ciccone. Yeah,
Pat was the reason why I became editor at Cracked, because she was an assistant editor at Marvel. She was like one of the first people I met when I moved to New York. And, we were all like these little grungy punk rockers and stuff, and go to clubs and cause all kinds of trouble. And she ended up becoming assistant editor to Larry Hama,
Yeah, G.I. Joe. Yeah.
So Larry had previously edited Crazy, at Marvel.
Okay. Yeah.
And so when the new owners came, when they moved from Florida and they had new owners in New York, they called Larry to see if he wanted to edit it. It Cracked. And, he was like with G.I. Joe and all that stuff. And he was like, nah, I got no interest. And they go, do you have any suggestions? And I'm like, meh. So he asked Pat, and she suggested me. So
that's awesome.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Listen, I got you brought up Mars Attacks, and I have on my desk, I keep a couple Mars Attacks cards. Yeah. Like I love these. I'm trying to get a whole set because I'm I don't have better things to spend my money on.
Well, where is it here? The Monsters Attack, right?
Yeah.
We have this very, very good article about the artist, Norman Saunders.
Whoop. Oh, here, I'll do there. Now it's all you.
Yeah. So this is all about how, all his pulp paintings and card paintings, including like he did the later Batman series of cards.
Yeah, I'm getting those too.
Yeah. Those are really cool. And, well, like artists like Bob Powell did some of the layouts for him and stuff. But yeah, like in the 80s, they did these little mini comics based on the cards and junk. But that's in the first volume of Monsters Attack. But it's got like interview with the artist and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because Monsters Attack, I tried to make like a cross between like EC and creepy and eerie and famous monsters. So it was some comics and some articles about movies and just, cult corniness.
Yeah. That Monsters Attack Volume 1?
It was.
Okay. I'm making note of that.
Both worth having.
Yeah, I want to.
And of course, there are a lot of Cracked artists, because that was just it. I was using all these artists at Cracked that had worked at EC and Warren. So it was like, I really want to do a horror comic, and the publisher didn't want to do it. So again, I kind of snuck it into the printing schedule, and they were really pissed until they saw the numbers on it, and they're like, "Okay, you can do it." But it's got Severin. Every issue had like Severin and Ditko and Colin and Gray Morrow and Alex Toth and Pat Boyette and a bunch of others.
It seems like so much of your success is dictated on just doing like act first, ask questions later, right?
Yeah. Don't ever ask questions. Just do it.
Yeah. Or like the one I meant, it was like like it's easier to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. Yeah. And like all of these things, it's like, well, and then I did it.
Yeah. And because like I always thought like the target audience was me. And it was like I was a geek. So it was like if I liked it, if I wanted to see it, I thought the readers would too. And it usually worked out that way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Here, I can pop this back up.
Oh yeah, and Dinosaurs of Rock.
Yeah. Beach Boys Horror at Party. Yeah. Stadium Stampede.
Ooh,
who did you say was the artist? Concert? What was that?
The Stadium Stampede. Is that about the Who concert?
Yeah, that is.
Ouch. That's in bad taste.
That is. Who published this?
Right? People died. And again, a lot of times too, kids probably didn't, weren't really aware of that. But that's what I learned from Mad in the 50s and 60s, reading the reprints, is that, if it was over your head, you'd learn about it later. And, to write down, you're not going to win,
Yeah.
And that's what Mad was doing in the 80s. They were writing down to the readers. And I don't think kids appreciated that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that was another thing that came up when I was talking to Kit. And I think it was around when we were talking about his work at Cracked, which is like kids want to be respected.
Yeah.
And, they can tell when it's like baby stuff being shoveled to them, It's like my own, like the kids I interact with, they'll be like, this is baby stuff. And it's like, yeah, it is. You're right. Sorry.
That's another George Glatter.
Yeah. With art by John Severin.
Yeah, because George did his share of conventions. He lived near San Diego, so he'd been going to them since the 60s. And oh man, he was such a great guy. He was a Pacific War hero during World War II, and then tried selling like girly gags in the 50s, and then segued into writing at Archie and Cracked. And he was phenomenal. He started doing yoga in the 1960s. So like, we'd see him at a con around 2000, and he must have been 80, and he was like, just energetic and youthful as possible.
Yeah. Know what I like about John Severin's stuff in Cracked is like you can see he uses like he uses like sometimes like the duo shade and all of that. But then like this, it's like all the amount of rendering he does is just pretty unbelievable. And it looks so cool, like that sort of inconsistent like little hatching, but like done in a pattern. I like it a lot.
It was just so wild to see his originals because like sometimes he would do white out on top of the duo shade, and then he would do a pen and fill in the duo shade. You know what I mean? Do the cross hatching to match.
Yeah. I don't know. The more I speak with artists, I think, and like, what am I trying to say? I'm glad for like these opportunities to interview people like you and other artists and writers, because it's helped me like get a smarter eye and like better appreciation of what it is that's actually happening on the page and the amount of effort and artistry that goes into it.
What ends up in print is the most important thing, and how you get there can be pretty pretty wacky sometimes.
Yeah. I like this though. Bob Payne or Rob, the Robin Payne.
That art is Pat Boyette, who was he did a lot of stuff at Charlton and like the Phantom and a lot of stuff for Warren, but he was also a filmmaker and made films in Texas. He was a radio broadcaster at first and did a lot of, like did the Kennedy assassination and stuff like that. But his first love was comics. And so he got into comics kind of late, but.
Yeah. Yeah. It's odd. Like this style is cool. I mean, I don't know that I would be able to recognize his actual normal style, right? Because he's trying to
do the Monsters Attacks too. And he does one story in Pebble Board, which is like a textured paper that you put a crayon over to give it, tones and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, look, that's a little picture of me at Pinewood at the Batman studio set.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't get any closer. Yeah. But yeah, there you are. Yeah. Oh, you're holding like a prop or something? What are you holding?
That was a book that had just come out that I had written called The Joker Joke Book that I did through DC Comics. And it was like, why did the Joker cross the road? Like all these stupid gags. And so it had just come out. So I brought it over and I left it with the art director to give to Jack Nicholson for some inspiration.
Nice. So even like, well, that cracks me up too, because like, did Warner Brothers own DC at the time?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And Mad. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were hiring you, who is also the editor-in-chief of a competitor of something else that they owned.
You see that up in the corner there, the top left there is, that was a parody we'd done a few issues earlier of the TV show from the 60s.
Yeah.
With this great art.
Yeah. I was looking in the wrong corner.
Yeah. Yeah. With this great art by Rick Altergott, who, like I told you, was with us with Psycho and Dan Clowes and junk. And I ended up meeting Adam West a couple months later, and I gave him the original page, but he didn't keep it, so I sent it back to Rick. But
yeah.
But I have a photo of me and Adam West with that splash page.
Yeah. Wait, so he was just like, nah, you keep it?
Well, no, he was busy. I don't think he really understood I was giving it to him. It was just a photo op or something. Oh, okay. But a weird coincidence, of which my life has had many. When I was like 11, I went to YMCA camp, and I became friends with this kid who was going to move to my hometown. And it turned out it was Adam West's nephew. And so like I would be like hanging out at his house, and Adam West would call, and I'd be like, oh, cool. And then when I finally met Adam West, I was like, I grew up with your nephew, Jay. And it was like, Jay, we were just fishing in Idaho last week. And Adam West was my pal all of a sudden.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, that's you have beautiful airbrush work by, that was the guy that was working at Mad too, is Rurik Tyler, Bo Badman.
Yeah. So wait, Rurik Tyler.
Did he sign his name there?
He did sign it, yeah.
Well, then that must have been after he decided he's not getting any more work from Mad, because he was only getting limited work in the first place, and he was using the Badman pseudonym. And then after a while, he just figured, I'm getting more work from Crack, so screw him.
Yeah. Yeah. The life of an artist is like, that's a hard life, to support yourself. Then let alone a family. Yeah. That's crazy though. I didn't realize that would be airbrush. And so it was like airbrush, and then he drew this stuff in.
Well, he did it in pen and ink, and then did the airbrush over it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's real cool.
Because like with airbrush, you would like mask off the parts. You're not airbrushing with like an adhesive tape that doesn't stick, so you can peel it off without having to rip off the art underneath it.
Yeah. And here's some of the Don Martin
Batman.
Yeah, cracked as Stardust. I'm never gonna stop loving that. That's like, yeah. Was that your idea too?
Oh, totally. Come on. I mean, that's just it. I'd try and jab them every time I could, you know? It's like, oh, yeah, Mad's maddest artist that you rip off.
Oh, my gosh. What, so yeah, more Roger Brown and Mike Resigliano.
Yeah, they were a good team.
Yeah. Then would Mike, those like the Spies and Sabs, was he writing those as well? Like he would write those on his own?
Okay. He would give me like, you know, a couple sheets of all these various things, and then I would cut and paste them onto the pages themselves, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, in a panel somewhere or this or that. Do you know Santa Cruz?
Yes. And I remember going through this on a live stream, and this is something I loved this. Because
well, you know it was done by Santa Cruz?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's Jim Phillips and his son who started Santa Cruz. They did a couple pages for us and stuff, and that's one of them.
Yeah, because it was like I had to process it on two levels. It's like, oh, okay, there's the joke, Santa Cruz, but then it's also like the take on the funny
Johnson Smith.
Yeah, and then like I'm looking in here, and it's like some like there's like the M60 machine gun, and it's like
there's so many gags.
Yeah, I love this. Is like one of my favorite things in this issue. I love
because those Santa Cruz guys, you know, loved Mad, obviously growing up in junk.
Yeah,
and you know, Mad didn't know them from whatever. But I was a big skateboarder back then and everything. So I don't remember how we got in touch, but I probably got in touch with them, and they were like, "Oh, we got this idea for this."
Yeah, well, and they have Santa Cruz has this logo of like the screaming hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then they have that screaming. This isn't for you. This is for the viewers. I love any middle finger joke. I'm a sucker for middle finger jokes.
I had to sneak so much stuff by our publisher too, because like, you know, they would like pick on something. You know, so sometimes I had to do stuff that I know they wouldn't like, so I could easily switch it, you know, whatever. But, you know, I got away with murder sometimes. You know, they really hated, do you know the Ugly Family?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the Klaus one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They hated that so much. And so I had to, I ended up like putting it in one of the reprint books. And then we got so much friggin' fan mail.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's like everything I did, like I usually had to sneak by, and then they were like, okay, let's do this.
So working with a publisher, then like, what is that relationship? Is like the proofs that like before they go to print, do you like run them by them or?
Supposedly. Yeah. Cause like I said, I snuck a few issues by them before they knew. Cause like they were interviewing all kinds of other editors who had stupid ideas. And I'd be in on the meetings, and they were like, you know, well, the first thing you should do is change the name of the magazine and get rid of Sylvester. And they're like, they just paid all this money for the magazine and everything, right? And then some people wanted to do some really violent adult humor and stuff, which was like, and others wanted to infantilize it, you know, so.
Yeah.
So, like I said, they would go like, well, when's the next issue due? And I'd tell them like 3 months after it was due. And meanwhile, put out a couple issues. So, yeah, at first they wanted 2 daily meetings. Because at first my offices were separate from theirs. They were on 45th, and I was right under the shadow of the Empire State Building, sharing office space with a porn magazine. And then finally, when I became editor, you know, and they wanted me to come up twice a week and everything and show everything. I was like, fuck that. Yeah. So then finally they moved me up to those offices on 45th and 5th. And that was pretty swank. It was like I had David Rockefeller's old bathroom.
Hey.
Yeah. Because it used to be like the original Chase Manhattan building or something.
Yeah. I ask Mort about Fraccio, and then a correction.
Francio.
Yeah. Arnoldo Francione.
Yeah, he'd been at, well, he'd done stuff at Mad too for years. and he'd been on and off at Cracked from the 60s to the 80s, and I had him do some stuff, but he just kind of petered out. He didn't really contribute much while I was there.
All right.
But he was a nice guy. And again, I think he was a fellow Argentinian of Vic Martin.
Yeah. You hear that, Kyle? Your boy Francione was no good. He was a bum.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. He was an excellent artist. I don't know if he had other clients or he was getting old or what, but
yeah.
And then also too, I used a lot of artists, not too often, but ones that I'd grown up with from Marvel and DC that didn't normally do humor, like like Dick Ayers or Kurt Schaffenberger or Win Mortimer or Henry Boltinoff, who had done a lot of humor for DC. And and these are all guys in their late 60s and stuff, weren't getting much work anywhere.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. The fact that you were pulling in both like old talent and new talent,
that's just it. Yeah, we were using super youngsters and super vets.
Yeah, which is pretty genius, right? Because it's one, you get people who want an in, they want to get professional work to build a portfolio, and then you have people who are not the hot commodity anymore, but who have just a wealth of talent.
And the thing too is I referenced doing stuff for Cracked a lot, like celebrities doing advertising or TV ads, because it was a little bit of work, but you got paid a lot better than regular comics. Our rates were, I think the lowest rate was $200 a page for art, whereas Marvel was paying probably 75 or 100.
Yeah. Here, I'm gonna hop back.
And that's Ron Wagner. He was another one of the guys I met through Gray Morrow, and he did a lot of work with Hama too. They had a comic called Nth Man, I think it was called.
Yeah. Well, and this is it does seem like a very comic book style versus what you normally see in a humor magazine. Especially this face. I loved that face. I don't know what it is. I like how he has that missing tooth right there.
It's a more George Glader, rather.
Yeah, holy smokes! Him and Severin.
Oh, they were a great team.
Yeah. Well, I'm now processing what you were saying earlier about when they tried to get Severin back, and he's like, "No, I'm getting more pages I can do over there. What are you talking about?"
Yeah. And like I said, you can totally tell that's Glader's layouts.
Yeah. Yeah, this is
Well, I'm really surprised we got away with that title too back then, Wise Ass.
Yeah. What was the show of?
It was called Wise Guy.
Okay.
And it was with this actor Ken Wall, and it was around the time of the Equalizer, and it was just I don't know, some freelance, I think he was a hood turned, do-gooder.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was the one that this guy ended up sending us a photo of him with reading the issue.
Well, that's it wasn't, this may have been towards the tail end of it, that glut of movies where it was what was the one with Death Wish, right? Where it was just one man just killing everybody, or Die Hard, where it was just the one guy.
Oh, check out the writer on that one. That's probably Tony Frank, which was Lou Silverstone.
No, this was Vic Bianco.
That's also Lou Silverstone. Like I said, look at how many pages he got there.
Yeah, yeah.
That he wouldn't have gotten it Mad,
Golly. Yeah, and here's
this is a rare Severin doing Nanny Dickering.
Yeah. What was the start of Nanny Dickering? How did that come about?
Well, in the magazine itself, there used to be this a woman on CBS called Nancy Dickerson.
Yeah.
Who did CBS reports. Her son is John Dickerson, who's on CBS now. And I was thinking of, if we ever did a remake, is do, like Johnny Dickering and make him super sexualized with big hairdo, like bigger hairdo than he already has. But I do remember in the early days at Mad, not early, like in the 60s, they used to do the white paper. I don't know if you remember that, but there'd be a couple.
I just was like, right. But I have no idea what you're talking.
They would do things that were like sort of like investigative reports, like 60 Minutes type thing. And I think they were called the white papers and different artists and different topics. But I think, this was probably late 60s. It cracked and, just gave them an excuse to use a topic and interview something that might not have been, super topical because, it was always the king, like Crack interviews the like Rock Video King, which was a photo comic I did that I was in. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
No.
And, or the Disco King or this or that. So it was like, they could do something based on a theme, that was popular.
Yeah. All right. And then, so, I mean, was that, was Bill Ward on that from the start?
No.
Okay.
No, there were a lot of different artists. I think Severin did the first ones, and he drew her like, I can't remember the actress's name, but do you remember the TV show Nanny and the Professor?
No. I have no culture.
Right, yeah. No, he drew a really, like the first couple times she appeared with a few different artists, she was drawn pretty normal, but then once Ward started doing it, it was like, va va boom.
Oh my gosh. Oh, speaking of Vavoom.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, and here's the shut-ups, right? And that's what you were saying that Jaffe was doing those. Like
in the early days. And again, almost every friggin' artist you could think of it has done shut-ups over the years. But towards the probably late 60s on, it was always this artist, Don Orheck, who was just like, he's a genius. He was a super nice guy. He still is. He's like in his 90s.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, hey, we're at like 2 hours, Mort.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, and here's what, Bill Ray. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
What's he called there? What's his name on the tag there? On the bottom.
Bill Ray down there. Yeah.
No. I mean the
the jerker.
The jerk. I would have come up with that.
But these were cool. I really liked it. I liked the kind of take on the Mad Magazine thing, and it's just a cool recurring element of it, like these kind of twisted portraits. But yeah, we've just spoken for 2 hours.
And my tooth barely bothered me.
Oh, excellent. I'm very glad to hear that. Before we say goodbye, I want to say, everybody, check out morttodd.com down below. You can find the books that he's putting out: Monsters Attack, Comedy of Jack Davis, Comedy of John Severin. You can find
show you something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a book I recently did, John Severin's Billy the Kid, which is Western comics from the early 60s while he was drawing it, cracked for Charlton. And that collection is a 1-volume black and white, but there's also 2 volumes in color that I colored myself.
Oh, nice. Hey, how do you get the rights to that? How do you
public domain?
Nice.
Well, with this book in particular, because I like over the last 6-7 years, are you familiar with Charlton Comics?
Yes.
Yeah. Because they went out of business in '85, and so it's all public domain. They didn't even properly copyright their material in the first place. So, But when I've done a few Charlton reprint books, and whenever I do, I try to get either original art or the stats, the original photo stats.
Yeah.
So this Billy the Kid book is all shot from the same stats that they used to print the original books. So it's like super clean. It's not like I'm scanning the old comic books, photocopying them or whatever and fooling around with them. This is the original stuff,
Yeah.
And the next book I'm putting out is, are you familiar with Tom Sutton's work? Tom Sutton was.
I feel like I've heard that name, but that also seems like it might be a common name.
Well, he did stuff for Warren. He did the first Vampirella comics at Warren, and did a lot of Charlton horror, and did Alice Cooper comic at Marvel and all this stuff. Right. And so I hooked up with a collector who owns tons of his original art. So we're doing like this incredible book. I've recolored a lot of his horror stories for the book, but this guy has also done a lot of research, and just like he's also got like the original scripts, that we scan and have in the book, so you can see it from like a one-page plot to the full typed out script with the editor's remarks on it, and then the final art. And and he just got back from a trip where he went to all of his old houses, Tom Sutton's old houses, because he was totally like a big Lovecraft fan. Okay. And lived in like Massachusetts and junk. So it was like, he always lived in these spooky houses and stuff. So it's going to be a very inclusive book on this guy's career, and it's pretty fun to work on.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I would love to talk with you more about old comics and like this type of like the publishing you're doing of that old material. And people can find all of that at morttodd.com, as well as you have a Patreon, and the link is at morttodd.com. And you have like 3 tiers, and they get comics and all types of stuff. Yeah, honestly, it's a better deal than
that, though.
What's that?
I gotta update that because like it's gotten out of hand.
All right.
I gotta limit the rewards.
Yeah.
Oh, one other thing, if I can mention, it's like, give me a full screen here.
Yeah.
Is this character called Sadistic, the diabolical super criminal. You can cut back now. And it's like I've adapted all these. I bought the rights, and I'm adapting all these Italian photo comics from the 60s, because like photo comics are popular in every country except America. But this is about a guy in a skeleton suit who's a super criminal, master of disguise, and ends up tying up all these, villainous chicks in their lingerie and stuff. And
some real William Marston vibes there.
And also, this is a movie poster for a documentary we did, because like in Italy there was a big crossover between film and photo comics, because like these actors who would be in films, in between films, would do photo comics. So you'll see a lot of the same actors that are in a lot of sci-fis and westerns and spy movies. And so it's pretty fun if you're super geek.
Yeah. Very cool.
So we did this documentary a while ago that we tracked down a lot of them in Italy, and and the guy who played the guy in the skeleton suit was under contract never to reveal who he was. But we found out who he was, and it turns out he's currently like the Regis Philbin of Italy.
Really?
Yeah, except in sports. He does a sports show, but he's like the super popular, jovial guy and everything.
Yeah. And he was in like these weird...
But like, like in Italy, there was a really close crossover between comics, photo comics, and films.
Yeah.
Like Fellini started out in photo comics.
Well, and like I feel like I can imagine what a photo comic is, but I don't think I've ever seen one.
Well, it's a comic told with photos.
Yeah. It's like, okay, now do this.
Yeah,
okay,
so
now punch the guy.
Like a movie almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, that's what I was saying earlier. Back in the day at Cracked, we did a photo comic with Nanny Dickering, and I used a friend of mine, ex-playmate, and turns out, and her daughter is in it, who was her first appearance before she became known as Liv Tyler. And and it was like Cracked interviews the Rock Video King, and I got like my hair slicked back and got a mustache and all that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I've always liked every possible genre of comics growing up.
Yeah.
So like Cracked, I was like, let's do a photo comic.
Yeah. And you had like so much to pull from. I mean, if you're like, yeah, you have like an incredible depth of knowledge. So it's like, yeah, that's the type of person you want in charge of a magazine.
Yeah, but they sure didn't appreciate it. So
yeah. Anyway, we got to wrap things up. I got to go to bed. But thank you, Mort Todd. I would love to have you back on, or just have more conversations with you, man. This is fantastic. I can't tell you how much fun this is.
Talk sometime about my Marvel career, where I hung out with legendary rock stars to do comic books based on them.
Wait, were you involved in the Kiss comic?
Not in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
You know, I was like 13 then, 12 and 13. No, but we did Kiss comics in the 90s.
Yeah.
And Alice Cooper and AC/DC and Elvis and Bob Marley. And
did you redo the thing where you like, hey, give me some blood, Bob Marley? Let's put some.
No, but I'll tell you, I got to spend like 2 months down in Jamaica to do research.
This is like, you have the craziest career. It's insane.
And it ain't over yet, baby.
It ain't. So yeah, check out his website. Thank you guys so much. Kyle, Bridget, thank you for stopping by. Sketch Therapy, good to see you, man. You always show up like right at the end. Sketchy Works, good to see you. Tom Smith, I knew Mort would be a great interview.
Oh,
yeah,
Tom.
You called it, man. Mark, great seeing you. Thank you so much for stopping by. I know that's not everybody, but I can't be bothered to keep scrolling. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Flipping Through. Toodaloo.
Thanks a lot.